The issue of who will succeed the 14th Dalai Lama is no longer just a spiritual or cultural matter, it has become one of the most delicate geopolitical flashpoints in South Asia. With the current Dalai Lama turning 90, the long-simmering debate over his succession has reignited tensions between China and India, drawing in concerns over religion, sovereignty, and regional stability. The Dalai Lama, the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader, recently made it clear that he will not be the last of his line. He announced that the process to identify his successor will be handled solely by the Gaden Phadring Trust, an institution he established to oversee matters related to his spiritual legacy. This announcement rejects China's long-standing claim that it has the sole authority to select the next Dalai Lama, a stance that sets the stage for a major confrontation. Traditionally, the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama is a sacred process involving senior Tibetan Buddhist monks and spiritual rituals. Historically, the identification process includes interpreting visions, consulting oracles, and seeking signs of the rebirth. However, China insists on its use of the Golden Urn method, an imperial-era ritual under state oversight. This has been used by the Chinese government in the past, most notably to appoint a rival Panchen Lama, widely rejected by the Tibetan diaspora. For Beijing, control over the next Dalai Lama is not just a religious matter but a political imperative. The Dalai Lama is seen by the Chinese Communist Party as a separatist figure and a symbol of resistance to Chinese rule in Tibet. Beijing's goal is to ensure that the next Dalai Lama is someone who aligns with the party's vision and helps integrate Tibetan Buddhism into the state apparatus. By asserting its right to appoint the next Dalai Lama, China seeks to undermine the legitimacy of the Tibetan exile movement and further tighten its grip on the Tibetan autonomous region. It also aims to dilute the influence of the current Dalai Lama, who remains an iconic figure of peace and nonviolent resistance across the world. India has hosted the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile since 1959, following his flight from Chinese occupation. Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh has become the de facto spiritual capital of Tibetan Buddhism in exile. While India has provided sanctuary, it has often walked a diplomatic tightrope, offering moral support while avoiding actions that could provoke Beijing. The recent statements by Indian officials, particularly those of Union Minister Kiren Rijiju, have reignited China's anger. Rijiju declared that only Tibetan religious institutions, not the Chinese government, should decide the Dalai Lama's successor. Though the Indian government later clarified that it does not interfere in matters of religion, the comment reflects India's growing discomfort with China's increasing aggression across multiple fronts, including border tensions. Beijing quickly responded by warning India against interference and suggesting that bilateral ties could suffer if New Delhi supports what it calls illegal succession. This brings back memories of past standoffs, including the Doklam crisis and the ongoing disputes along the line of actual control, LAC. The Dalai Lama's succession is a religious ritual, but in the current geopolitical environment, it has become a symbol of strategic autonomy. If the Tibetan community in exile, under the Dalai Lama's guidance, appoints a new spiritual leader from outside China, likely within India, it would challenge China's authority and risk the emergence of two rival Dalai Lamas, one recognized by China, the other by the global Tibetan diaspora. This duality would fracture the unity of Tibetan Buddhism and put followers worldwide in a difficult position. At the same time, it could embolden other religious groups within China to question Beijing's authority over faith traditions, potentially sparking wider unrest or resistance. For India, supporting the exile-appointed Dalai Lama would reinforce its commitment to religious freedom and democratic values. However, it would also deepen the rift with China and potentially lead to diplomatic or economic retaliation. Remaining neutral, on the other hand, may be seen as a betrayal by the Tibetan community and a compromise on moral grounds. The succession row is also drawing attention from the international community. The United States and several European countries have already expressed support for the Dalai Lama's right to spiritual autonomy and have urged China not to interfere. Recently, financial support for Tibetan causes has been renewed by major Western powers, reflecting the broader concern about China's crackdown on religious freedom and minority rights. If China proceeds with naming its own Dalai Lama, it will likely find support only within its borders and among countries closely aligned with its regime. The global Tibetan community, however, is expected to reject such an appointment and rally behind the figure chosen by traditional methods. This divide could last for generations, creating lasting tensions between Tibetan Buddhism's spiritual authority and political control. As the 14th Dalai Lama ages, the urgency to resolve or prepare for the succession issue intensifies. Several possibilities are on the table. 1. Two Dalai Lamas, one chosen by Beijing, the other by the Tibetan exile community. 2. Dalai Lama born in India. The current Dalai Lama has hinted that his successor could be born in a free country, most likely India. 3. Delayed recognition. The Tibetan tradition allows for several years of searching and validating a reincarnation, which may give both sides time to maneuver diplomatically. 4. International mediation or support. Western nations may continue to support the Tibetan position through diplomacy, funding, and public statements. Regardless of which path is taken, the decision will shape the future of Tibetan identity, Sino-Indian relations, and the broader global conversation about religious freedom and cultural autonomy. The succession of the Dalai Lama is no longer a quiet monastic affair, it's a political landmine. For China, it's about control. For India, it's a test of its values and strategic patience. For the Tibetan people, it's a matter of preserving their identity. And for the world, it's a reminder that in the 21st century, even spiritual legacies are not immune to the forces of power and politics. How this issue unfolds will not only determine the next spiritual leader of millions but also serve as a litmus test for Asia's ability to balance tradition, sovereignty, and the enduring struggle between faith and force.